Thank you very much, Hannah, and thank you everyone for joining. So as you heard, my name is Rufo Compagnone, and I'll go straight to my presentation. So today I'm privileged to share some insights from my fieldwork with Rendile and Borana pastoralists in Northern Kenya, and my presentation is on peer-assisted smartphone learning to support participatory app design with pastoralists in Northern Kenya. So the rangelands in Northern Kenya is characterized by high temporal and spatial variability, and pastoralists use strategic approaches like mobility to utilize these pockets of opportunities that appear in different times and space. And so to make this grazing management and itineraries, they depend on real-time or up-to-date information on rangelands and livestock conditions. And they have an existing sophisticated information sharing system, for example, using travelers like an internal radio, or sending scouts to survey their next grazing area. And so because they already have a sophisticated system, then there is potential to harness digital opportunities to support this existing pastoralist information sharing system. And co-design, as a participatory design approach, really integrates users' perspectives into the development of digital tools. And in this process of collaboratively designing a tool with users, then it is important that these users understand what they are contributing to the process they're participating in, and also these digital technologies. But most of the pastoralists that we work with in Northern Kenya have limited formal education and also have limited prior technology experience. They do use the small buttons or ordinary phones, but also also for limited use like phone calls. Hence, with this in mind, then it is important to really, there's a need for a customized approach to co-design the digital technology to fit the context of pastoralists in Northern Kenya. And as I mentioned earlier, digital literacy is important to ensure that there's meaningful co-design participation and that we are not just ticking a box for stakeholder involvement in the process of co-design. And it's been really, in literature, it shows that peer-assisted learning does support digital literacy among new technology users. So what gap are we trying to fill with my study or our approach is that mostly been conducted with literate or tech literate populations. And the few that have been done with populations that are tech illiterate, the uptake of these innovations has been low, or the scaling up has really been limited. And this is due to low user involvement in the early stages of design. So as a result, then the content of this technology is either irrelevant or misaligned with user needs, and then this leads to the low uptake of the innovation. There's also gaps in understanding how to effectively engage these marginalized groups, such as pastoralists, in co-design processes. And for this, in my study, we realized that there is need to ensure that the users evolve alongside the technology design. And the existing co-design studies that actually involve this training to bring the users up to a level where they can contribute to the process lack systematic evaluation of the learning processes. And the results are really, or rather, the different evaluations are mostly from researchers or designers giving their perspectives without really empirical assessment of the learning. And this, then there is a methodological gap to be filled in rigorous evaluations of the training and the learning outcomes in co-design processes. And peer-assisted learning as an approach is also been well studied in fields like medicine, education, but its role in supporting co-design is largely unexamined. So now I would like to take you through the process of the co-design process with the Borana and Rendile pastoralists in Kenya. So too often, as I mentioned earlier in the introduction, technology has been developed without the user inputs. So usually the users are brought in towards the end or towards the final stages of design. just to either accept or acknowledge or to tick a box. But here at InfoRange, in this transdisciplinary research, we are striving to ensure that users are integral through co-design. And with this co-design process, our focus areas is to ensure that the tool is relevant, and so it's useful, and also in terms of functionality, that the tool is usable, and also focusing on inclusivity. So inclusivity in terms of the process, so involving the user from the beginning of the process, and also inclusivity with regards to the functionality of the tool. So ensuring the audiovisual aspects of these tools are also considered to ensure that non-tech users or illiterate users can navigate without needing support from someone else. So the goal is co-developing a relevant tool that is usable by tech illiterate people. So our co-design process has three major phases. So the pre-design phase, and the design phase, and the develop and implement phase. So in the pre-design phase, for example, we used paper prototypes to provoke ideas or brainstorm ideas with the pastoralists. And under this collective catalyzing phase, we also carried out information needs using narrative interviews. And once we had this collective catalyzing phase, then we had the training and support, which will be the focus of the next slides and presentation. So for the training and support, we focused on smartphone training, and I'll explain why later. And we used, or rather with the support of volunteer information facilitators from the local communities, then these communities were trained on how to use a smartphone. Then the next phase, the next stage in the design phase is the collective understanding and exploring. And in this phase, we formed a two co-design teams. And these teams one is in Laisamis with the Rendile community, and one in Sololo with the Borana community. And we set the goals and aims and what we're going to do, and we defined the co-design process together with the community. Then comes the progressive participatory design with the co-design team. So far, we've carried out 12 iterative co-design workshops with these two co-design teams. And here we had different workshops discussing different issues, like, for example, what kind of information they would like to share, with whom. We also introduced the high fidelity prototype in these workshops, and we also discussed the risks and concerns of sharing this information amongst others. And now from November of this year up to end of January of 2026, we are planning to carry out more co-design workshops with these two teams, and also have the phase where we're using and experiencing and modifying and adapting to ensure that the tool is relevant and also functional. And throughout this process, we have a technical team based in Nairobi, the Compretes, that is continuously developing, constructing, and implementing with the feedback or with the input from the co-design team. And as a researcher, I've also been evaluating the process continuously, and some of these activities have also been happening mostly in iterative sessions. So with the background in mind, the aim of this research is to evaluate how peer-assisted smartphone learning supports digital literacy and participation in co-design of a rangeland monitoring application in northern Kenya. And the research questions I'm trying to answer is, how do pastoralists perceive the peer-assisted smartphone learning? What knowledge and practical skills did pastoralists perceive they acquired through the learning? How are pastoralists applying the new knowledge and skills? And what do pastoralists perceive as outcomes of this learning? So the project area and setup, our study is in Marsabit County with Borana community in Sololo area, the northern part of the map, and the Rendile in Lower Laisamis. And we have two co-design teams, a total of 20 persons, 16 male and 4 women. And these co-design team members were selected by the InfoRange community committees. And the InfoRange community committee is a community stakeholder group that we work with in the InfoRange project. And so far, we've had 12 iterative co-design workshops in each area between March and August of 2025. And for the process of smartphone learning, we've had 8 smartphone learning sessions with the InfoRange community committees, and also 8 sessions with the co-design team, with each co-design team in the 2 study areas. And their learning was facilitated by volunteer information facilitators. As a facilitation method for this study, we used an approach called progressive participatory design. And progressive participatory design ensures the co-evolution of users alongside technology. This is to ensure the progression and the development of users' knowledge base and skill set, to ensure that users better understand the technology that we are co-designing with them, the benefit it offers, and also how to utilize it effectively, which is an essential step of active user participation. And in this co-evolution, you can see the blue sections refer to the evolution of technology, and the brown refer to the evolution of the users. So with the technology, for example, we started with paper prototypes to elicit ideas for this app that we're working on. And then much later in the process, we also introduced a high fidelity prototype, which is a detailed interactive digital version of the app. And for the users, we started with the incremental smartphone learning. So we started from the basic features to the use of WhatsApp. So that was the goal, to learn WhatsApp. And this is because we needed or rather we were using ensuring that we use an instant utility artifact, which is an existing tool for immediate practical use. And for us, the existing tool, or rather the instant utility artifact, is WhatsApp. So why WhatsApp? This is because WhatsApp features mirror the functionality of the app that we're working on. Because of the level of literacy of the pastoralists that we are working with, then it is important that the aspects of audiovisual messaging functions is included in the application, which is similar to WhatsApp. And so then we were ensuring through this incremental learning that they get used to this function. And the goal of this is to ensure that we increase the ability, or rather we were striving to increase the ability to contribute to the process of designing a relevant application with the pastoralists in northern Kenya. So we collected qualitative data using semi-structured interviews, so with 20 pastoralists, pastoral livestock keepers, and 4 volunteer peer facilitators. We also carried out 8 more significant change story sessions. And in each session, we had about 8 to 12 participants and 8 to 12 stories per session. And we used also transcripts of co-design workshop recordings, especially when we were introducing the prototypes, and also the post-workshop reflections that we carried out at the end of each workshop. And the qualitative data was then analyzed using Kirkpatrick's evaluation model and using the MaxQDA software. So the Kirkpatrick evaluation model of learning has 4 levels of evaluation. So it has the first level, the reaction, which measures the participants' responses to the learning. Then the second level is learning. This assesses the knowledge and skills acquired from the learning. And then the changes in action. So what change in behavior has occurred from this learning? And then finally, the outcomes, which is the results from the learning itself. So up to the results section. So the results on reaction to learning, 2 themes came up from the analysis. One is the positive reactions to learning, and the other is the challenges that were identified by the participants. And for the positive reactions to learning, these were along the lines, mostly the reaction towards the methods of learning. So for example, the practical learning sustained the learner interest. The hands-on demonstration really helped them with building confidence on how to use the instant utility artifact. The peer-assisted learning, so the volunteer facilitators spoke in their local language and they were accessible post the learning session, was also highlighted as one of the positive reactions to the learning. And the progressive learning, moving from the basic to the complex along the pace of the learners, was also one of the other positive reaction to the learning. Then for the challenges, some initial barriers were highlighted by the participants. So self-doubt with regards to I don't have prior experience of using a phone before, or I am too old to learn how to use a smartphone, were some of the challenges that were expressed by the participants. Also some structural issues, for example, contextual issues like the distance to the training area, and also the timing sometimes was conflicting with their day-to-day activities. And the learning sessions for some were either too short or too long, and the information overload, especially when complex topics like WhatsApp was being introduced. The learning pace variations, these were highlighted by both the facilitators and the learners. So, for example, that the slow ones needed more time, and also the repetitions because of maybe the slow learners, and these varied speeds were also considered a challenge by both participants and the peer facilitator. Then another theme that came up in this level of learning evaluation is the motivation to learn. So we observed from the transcripts that there was motivation before the learning, so the desire to learn despite the doubts. So they had the doubts, but they still wanted to learn. And post-learning, mostly because now that they know or have learned how to do one or two things, the first lessons, then this builds confidence, and also since they recognize the relevance that they can use these phones to share pictures of grazing areas with each other or communicate audiovisually, and they don't have to really know how to read and write to use a smartphone. So this also really motivated them to want to learn more. Then the second level of evaluation is learning, and here also two themes came up in the analysis. One is the competence in smartphone use, and here we observed improved digital abilities, or participants themselves have observed in themselves that they now can confidently make phone calls, use WhatsApp for communication. And I have a quote from a herder in Ngurunit here that says, "I was so good, I started using it around Coast Town as I take pictures of what I want. After a while, I was good at it, and I told the peer facilitator to teach others as I am getting better." And then the other theme under learning was learning to learn. So we observed that a lot of the participants said that they had increased confidence, and they were using strategies to seek peer support. So for example, they would ask their children or their peers or neighbors, either to remind them of something they have forgotten, or to also just show them more on what they could learn from the smartphone. So an example here from a female herder in Kor who said that when the peer facilitator is busy or teaching other committees, I would let my children help me, or even visit a neighbor with a smartphone for more ideas on how to use it. Then the third level is the change in action. Here that the co-design team and the committee members immediately applied WhatsApp skills on their day-to-day activities. For example, we saw there was engagement with the digital environment. They were now using WhatsApp to communicate with family members in urban areas or their children in school. And with some, they also mentioned the deliberate allocation of financial resources to purchase data bundles. And some changes in action in pastoralist activity system is they are now using WhatsApp to share grazing updates. They were also telling each other about predator alerts, especially in the Ngurunit area with hyenas, and also communicating with herders in the satellite camp. And the other theme was the willingness to share learning. So of the participants kept saying that when they went home, they showed their wife or their husband or their children or their neighbor on how to use a smartphone, or even how to use WhatsApp itself. So this willingness to share learning. So the fourth level is outcomes, and I wanted to share examples of WhatsApp use. So there are a couple of examples on how they are now already using WhatsApp. So reporting on human-wildlife conflict, also to access vet or vet health support even from their peers, supporting governance, and also supporting grazing management. And I will read two quotations. So for supporting governance, Ahada from Sololo said that I am a grazing committee member. People have breached these plans and encroached into areas which are reserved. I'm able to take photos and videos when I find people committing such things, and I have enough evidence and they cannot escape. And for the vets, we can see here that already they're using WhatsApp to share information with each other from peer to peer. So after I sent the picture to the group, I got responses from people that have experienced the same disease on the livestock before through voice notes with the right medication to use, which helped in treatment of my sheep. And before that, I was thinking it was going to die. And again, continuation on the outcomes. So we also had examples of social outcomes. So social outcomes here ranges from individual to community benefits. So some benefits were very individual at an individual level, and others were both individual and community. And we could see some independence and financial inclusion. Some felt like their social status has improved, social connectivity also now connecting more with people, especially that are far away, and also information access. And just to read one quote, so there's a female herder in Sololo who said, or rather who told her partner in the most significant change story session that she did not have even the small dumb phone in the past. She used to sell charcoal and would rely on someone else's phone to communicate with her customers and to receive money through M-Pesa. After she has received this phone, communication has been easier. Also, she's been receiving money directly through M-Pesa. Again, still on the topic of outcomes, we also saw the influence on the core design process, especially with the instant utility artifact that is WhatsApp. And so after they learned how to use WhatsApp, we asked this core design team members on what kind of information they would like to share on such a platform and what information they wouldn't want to share. And this table shows a summary of some of the information that they would like to share and with whom and how. And from this table, you can see that, for example, with regards to pasture, that information sharing is strategic and context dependent, and resource scarcity changes sharing behavior. For example, with resources, when resources are scarce, they do not share it, but when resources are abundant, then they will share it widely. And sometimes also selectively if the resources are immoderate. But when it comes to information that would either cause loss or risk, to protect the herd and to reduce the risk, they would share this information widely with everybody. And this particular activity helped us to find more information on what kind of information they would like to share. And this then in turn did inform the high fidelity prototype that we are now working with or working on. And to continue on influence of the core design process, then we observed that WhatsApp use builds the confidence for the participants to contribute to the core design process, and they would give feedback. They provided feedback, or they had the confidence to provide feedback. And I have a quote here from Core Design Workshop in Lysamis. One participant says, "These buttons are okay, there is no need to change. It is even better than the usual one on WhatsApp. For instance, the record button in WhatsApp, we usually hold and record the voice, but this one you can click to start and stop when you want. So I prefer this one to remain the same." So you can see the comparison already using the instant utility artifact. So in conclusion, peer-assisted learning with local facilitators and progressive skill building successfully enabled non-literate pastoralists to develop smartphone competencies, and participants applied these digital skills directly to their pastoral activity system, like real-time scouting, emergency reports, veterinary consultation, and others. And WhatsApp familiarity from smartphone training directly enabled meaningful participation in high fidelity prototype evaluation and co-design feedback. And progressive participatory design then challenges literacy assumptions in technology co-design, providing a replicable model for inclusive participatory design with marginalized communities. And I'd like to acknowledge the two co-design teams in Sololo and Nguni, that's Ilchekuti Lol Kiliku and Abu Tufin Bori. Team members, Rafael Gudere, the VIF, Gabriel and Richard, and the Comfits team for their continuous support throughout my field study and also when I'm not in the field. And here's just a list of some references that I would like to share with you. Thank you.